So, the street that next attracts the eye is called man worship. The Temple of Fame is the most lofty structure on this street. It is on the corner opposite the Merchants Exchange facing the Capitol. It is built after the Grecian style of architecture. Yet, in the sundry repairs which have been made, the Corinthian, the Doric, the Ionic, the Gothic, evidently display the dust of ages, has settled on its cornice. The embellished, okay, this is just describing what it looks like, okay? Let's just get into it. This temple is, in fact, the pantheon of the city. The worshippers, the polytheists, that's people who worship more than one god, and they do not bow before the sun or high host of stars or fish or bird or beast or creeping things, but their devotion is impious man worship. At one time, it is a military chieftain, at another, a statesman. Today, it is an orator, tomorrow, a poet. It matters not who is the god of the day. The altars smoke with the incense of adulation, and the vast walls reverberate with songs of praise as hymned by applauding multitudes. However zealous they are, apparently in their devotions, they are very fickle as to the object of their adoration. Today they will cry Hosanna, tomorrow away with him. Today they will condemn Sorocrats to drink the juice of the hemlock. Tomorrow they will rear him an altar. This year a poet will be fed and caressed. The next he will starve in a garret. This month the shrine of a philosopher will be crowned with attentive worshippers. The next it will be abandoned. All around the temple you will see statues denuded and covered with dust and cobwebs, images of heroes hurled from their pedestals, altars that once smoked with the incense of cytophantic millions broken and crumbled. Here and there you will discover the images of some ancient worthies kept bright and clean. That of Aristotle, you should read the book of Aristotle. It's a fairy tale, but it's not a fairy tale. Fairy tales are real. They're actually about the ancient Hebrew kings, the then they rule. Those stories about princes and kings and queens and that's actually the history of the Hebrew kings, rolled away since it was first set up. The shrines of Plato, Zeno, Zola, Lacrus, these are just all idols. All right, Virgil, have no lack of devotees. All the worshippers who have ever bowed in this temple have been characterized by a burning desire to become supreme objects of adoration themselves. Hence the bickering and jealousies among the devotees. Hence the broken altars and neglected shrines. Hence the untrying efforts of the worshipper to supplant each other. The idol of yesterday is taken down to make room for the idol of today. The multitude shout Cairo, Pompey, Caesar, Brutus, Anthony, as whim or interest may influence them. It is astonishing what sacrifices men will make to become the idol of an hour. The philosophers will starve for years in a garret. The anchorite will banish himself to caves and rocks. The traveler will endure the snows of Siberia, the icebergs of the polar sea, the sands of Africa. The warrior will slaughter 1,000,000 men and burn 1,000 cities in order that they may gain an entrance into this temple and become the object of adoration to mortals. In fact, no tongue can tell what mountain waves of suffering men will buffet if the world will bow down and worship them. Never are the watchmen who keep the city more at ease than when they can get the denizens to bow at the shrine of some false deity. Hence, the success which has ever attended the impositions of false prophets. Hence, the Turk, the Moor, the Arab bowed to the crescent, the Persian, the image of Zoroaster, the dwellers in Siam and Cleon, Pakistan, to the tooth of Buddha, the subjects of the great Mongol, the shrine of Zamolix, the millions of the celestial empires, the Confucianists, the Japanese, the Grand Lama, the Papist, the Virgin Mary, the Mormon, the prophet of Nauvoo. About 1 mile of man worship is occupied with splendid palaces erected by military heroes. The walls are frescoed with the most memorial deeds of the builders, and although the dust and dampness of the age have passed over them, they are as bright as when they first came from the hand of the painter. On the walls of the palace, once occupied by Alexander, you will see delineated an assemblage of vulnerable men voting. If Alexander wishes, let him be God. On the walls of Vespuccian residence, you will see painted the death scene of the Emperor Vespasian, standing upright on his dying couch, supported by his courtiers, and exclaiming with his expiring breath, I feel I am about to become a god. On the palace of the proud king of the Chaldeans, you will see the king of Babylon surveying the grandeur of his capital and saying, Is it not this great Babylon which I have built, King Nebuchadnezzar? A little further on, you will see delineated on the walls of the royal palace once occupied by Herod, the king arrayed in royal apparel, claiming to be an applauding multitude who shout, It is the voice of a god. About 2 miles of man worship are taken up with buildings occupied by statesmen, orators, philosophers, poets, painters, sculptors, and play actors. Some of the residences are costly and spacious, but they are mostly under mortgage. Cruelty Street will next attract the eye, not from the splendor of its building, but from the uncommon appearance of its inhabitants. They are all characterized by a tremendous enlargement of the throat, and are distinguished for straining at a gant and swallowing a camel. And they are all so well trained from infancy that they swallow down with equal ease ghosts, wizards, hobgoblins, and witches, as also the shimmerings of sophists and the miracles of false prophets. You will find men living on Cruelty Street who believe that the earth is a fragment knocked off from the sun in the concoction of some runaway comet, that men and animals once grew like trees out of the earth, that the stars are little apertures where the gods look out on our naughty world. Here are men who believe Muhammad rode to heaven and back in one night, and that women have no souls. Here are the multitudes who believe they possess fragments of the true cross, which, if gathered and piled, the mountain thus formed would manifest the tallness of their cruelty. Here you will find great numbers who imagine that gold is potent in lifting souls out from the fires of purgatory, and that the forgiveness of sin is the prerogative of the priest. On this street are the dilapidated dwellings of necromancers, magicians, soothsayers, sorcerers, enchanters, and fortune tellers. They were evidently built up at great expense, but they are now fast tumbling into ruins. The excavations of men of science are undermining their foundations. Mormonism, Millerism, and Memorism are swallowed down just now by thousands on the street. Here you will find men who strain at the narration of Moses gives of the world's creation, and swallow down the dogma that it was the work of chance, or that nothing can create something. They strain at the earth turning on its axes once in 24 hours, and swallow the theory that the sun, the moon, the stars travel billions of miles once in 24 hours around the earth. They strain at the miracles of Christ and swallow the impossibilities of 12 ignorant fishermen fabricating the sublime scheme of the gospel. They strain at the balm of Gilead and physicians there, and swallow an apothecary's shop of infidel absurdities. They strain at the idea of the divine spirit knocking at the door of the heart, and swallow the delusions that they can hold converse with the departed spirits of infidel scoffers. Finally, they strain at the Bible and swallow Tom Paine. Passing out of Cruelty Street, you will come into Hypocrisy Street. It is very broad and spacious. The houses are all painted white. The steps are carefully garnished that you would fear to tread thereon. But step in within, you will fare still more from the filth and rottenness. The inhabitants take great care to keep their faces long and clean, but their bodies and linen, like the inside of their houses, are full of all manner of uncleanness, and an air of melancholy, I can't say that word, pervades the entire street. Solemnity is depicted on every countenance. Even the children have caught the infection. The smile of innocence, the joyous laugh, the sounds of merriment never salute the eye or ear. Contagious to hypocrisy is Envy Street. The houses are all painted green, the windows are full with long glass jars containing snakes of greenish tinge. The dwellers on this street never smile but at another man's misery, and never weep but at another man's joy. They delight in wandering about the city, gazing at the ruin and wretchedness. Though should they discover a newly erected palace or a new man rising from penury to affluence, from obscurity to fame, we are told that the snakes in the jars whisk and hiss as if filled with extreme anguish. Cain, the first woman born, the first of woman born, and the first to unfurl the banner of death, had lodging in this street. Here you will see the coat of many colors, which so excited the envy of the brethren of Joseph, the javelin which King Saul hurled at David, when the daughters of Israel sang, Saul has slain his 1,000, but David his 10,000, and also the bed on which Themistocles lay sleepless after the victories of the hero of Marathon. Jealousy runs parallel with Envy Street. The houses are all painted yellow. The inhabitants are so afflicted with moral jaundice that their eyes and countenance has received a saffron tinge. All the courtiers of this city reside on this street. Here also are the seraglios of the Turk. The twang of the bowstring is often heard in this vicinity. Not a few of the inhabitants of this street have plunged the suicidal dagger into their own hearts. Many have poisoned the cup ere it has been proffered to a brother's lips. Here you will see the bed on which Desdemona lay when smothered by the jealous Moor. Near this street is the quarry from whence are taken the Ago wheatstones. The street of ingratitude will next command